Okay, this is the official review recording for the Machshevet Test, which is taking place this coming week, I believe, on Thursday. I think on Thursday. Yeah. So let's get to it. Okay. The test is on sheets 4, 5, and 6, and this is sheet 4. So we talked about the idea of tzipita lishua. Tzipita lishua means anticipating Mashiach. That one of the things we learned in the Super Bagrut, when you come to the Beit Din Shamala after 120 years, we learned the different questions that they're going to ask you. One of them is Tzipita Yeshua. Did you anticipate the Yeshua? Did you anticipate the salvation? So exactly why is that so important? That's what we're trying to investigate. So Rav Chalak comes up with the list here on the sheets 5. I think we only did the 4, if I remember correctly. We're talking through the 4 reasons why Tzipita Yeshua is important. So number 1 is that we do not know when Mashiach is coming in order that we should anticipate. If we knew, then no one anticipated, just sit and wait. By anticipating, so that is in itself going to hurry up, hasten the bringing of Mashiach. In other words, Mashiach is set to come at a certain time, but if everybody's anticipating, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the ability to make that time earlier. So according to his first understanding, Tzipiti Lishua is important because that in itself will hurry up the process of Mashiach. Number 2 is that we understand that Mashiach is going to come when Bnei Yisrael are good, right? And we look around, we see, Bnei Yisrael aren't so good. A lot of people, unfortunately, not keeping Shabbos. A lot of people assimilating, all sorts of horrible things. Tzipiti Yeshua means that we have the ability to see beyond the external, and internally, Bnei Yisrael is a magnificent people. And so by Tzipiti Yeshua, it allows you to go ahead. And again, I'm reading from the Hebrew. Even if the ma'asim are not so good, the gula can come anytime because inwardly they are poor, they are pure. Number 3, so we learned about the idea of ikvata de Mashiach. Ikvata de Mashiach literally means the footsteps of Mashiach. When Mashiach is on his way, we have this idea of what's called Chevlei Mashiach. Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach, Chevlei Mashiach. And when we have Tzipil Yeshua, it gives us a light at the end of the tunnel. Because the birth pains means that before something happens, it's be very painful. And before Mashiach happens, there could be some very painful moments. Maybe they already have been in our history. It's hard to know. And the Tzipiyah Yeshua helps us deal with those difficult moments. And number 4 is what Tzipiyah Yeshua does. It causes us to go ahead and to think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, think about God, and to think about Mashiach and all these wonderful things, and to learn and everything else. And that helps us, gives us what we call hitromamut. It raises us up because hitromamut ruchanit, it raises us spiritually. So just as Sipiyah Yeshua is something which is very healthy for the Jewish soul. So that's it comes up with these 4 ideas why Sipiyah Yeshua is very important. From there, we went to the Kuzari. The Kuzari, we explained, Rav Yehuda Halevi, who lived in the Middle Ages, who wrote this tremendous philosophical work on a conversation that he has with the Melech Kuzar, the king of the Kuzarites, who wants to convert to Judaism. That's Sefer Kuzari. And Rav Yeshua and Rav Yehuda Halevi says is that just anticipating Mashiach with no action, that doesn't do it. It must be with some sort of action. He says, just davening for Mashiach is not enough. That doesn't constitute Tzipita Yeshua by just mumbling Animad Shalema Mashiach. I believe in B'tiach Mashiach. But it has to be accompanied by real action. And he goes ahead and he says, he apologizes to the Melech Kuzar. And he says, if a Jew is just praying for Mashiach, but he has no intentions on coming on Aliyah, so melody bor hatuki, zarzir. That's like the parakeet talking. It says words, but has no idea what they mean. And it's like the hummingbird humming. It's hums, it doesn't know any tunes. And these things don't mean anything. So just to daven without any action is meaningless. And he says, "Ilu hayu olim rova yudim la'eretz Yisrael, hakanireh magia Mashiach kfar mizman." He said that if the majority of Jews would actually come to Eretz Yisrael, again, he's writing in the 1200s, then Mashiach would have come. It says, Beglal, between parentheses, Beglal Shbnei Yisrael la'alu, give gam akel b'otzom mitzah. And since Bnei Yisrael are not coming, so Kadosh Baruch Hu does not give us what we need. It's a midah connected midah. And so therefore, Sipiyat Lishua must be accompanied by action that you're actually willing to come to Eretz Yisrael. And anything short of that is not going to work. Now he comes up with an idea here, which is called the Inyan HaEloki. So we discussed the Inyan HaEloki, and it says in this last sentence, Ki Inyan HaEloki Chala Adam Lefi Hachanat Adam. Inyan HaEloki is basically your spiritual flame, your spiritual light. He says that every Jew has within them, it's in their DNA, this Inyan Eloki, a little bit of godliness, divinity within them. And that depends how much you have is totally up to the person. So yes, you have this Inyan Eloki, but that Inyan Eloki is totally up to your actions. So therefore, if Jews come to Eretz Yisrael, then that Inyan Eloki is going to be increased. It's going to be enhanced. If Jews do not come to Eretz Yisrael, the Inyan Eloki is going to be diminished. That takes care of sheet number 4. So let me X this out, and now we're going to make here. We don't need to save this, and okay. And now we're going to go to sheet number 5. Here we go. Thank you for your patience here, and away we go. Okay, so that the question, which very, very much was on the forefront of European Jewry, the Jews of Europe in the 1800s, was this idea of Tzionut, of which we didn't call Tzionut then. It was Zionism. Zionism really took shape with Herzl, but even before Herzl, there was a lot of talk amongst different Jewish groups. Is it the time that we should go back to Eretz Yisrael? So basically 2 ideas we're going to study. One is from the Admor of Lubavitch, not the last Lubavitch Rebbe, but going back to the 1800s. He was the 5th Chabad Rebbe from 1860 to 1920. And he said, no, this is not a good idea to go back to Eretz Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us in diaspora, put us in Galut for a reason. And that reason is because we don't deserve to come to Eretz Yisrael, and we cannot go ahead and escape from prison. We have no right to go ahead and to escape this punishment. We have to wait until Mashiach comes and only then come into Eretz Yisrael. That was his idea. Rasir Shkalisher was one of the first Rabbanim to actively encourage people to come back to Eretz Yisrael. Now, before his time, one has to notice that people did come to Eretz Yisrael, but those people were involved in Talmud Torah. They came, specifically the Talmidim, the students of the Vilna Gaon. There was a whole group that came to Tzfat, to Tzveria, later to Yerushalayim. But they settled in Eretz Yisrael, what we call the Yishuv HaYashan, but they were dependent upon the Chalukah. Economically, they were dependent upon tzedakah that was given to them. Rasir Shkalisher says, that's not what it is. We have to go ahead and we have to actively bring Mashiach. And the way that we do that is coming to Eretz Yisrael, buying land, learning how to farm the land, building an economy, building an infrastructure that Jewish people are going to be able to come. And that so he started this whole idea, and again, it's coming on as a result of anti-Semitism, but more so a result of the whole nation-state movement that he lived through in the 1800s in Germany and Italy and other places. The whole idea of nation-states, the Jews needed a nation also, and he actively, together with other rabbanim, pursued philanthropists and the big one being Edmund de Rothschild, and later Moshe Montefiore, to go ahead and to buy land, to train people to farm that land, and to start the idea of yeshuvim. So you have these two very different approaches to what the Jews in the 1800s should be doing. The Lubavitcher Rebbe saying, "Stay put." Sirish Kalisher said, "The time has come," and that's what Biat HaMashiach is all about. Not waiting for Mashiach, not waiting for some sort of sound of the shofar, but very much to be actively involved in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan to bring Mashiach. Okay, that takes care of Machshevet number 5. So let's X this out. And now let's go to the next thing on our list, which is Machshevet number 6. And here we go, Machshevet number 6. And I didn't share it. That's not a good idea. Hold on. Okay. Yes, this is Chavetz Chaim. So we learned about the Chavetz Chaim. Chavetz Chaim lived from 1838 to 1933. He lived in Europe. And the question very much is that what's going to bring Mashiach? Is it when we do tshuva, or can it happen despite the actions of the Jewish people? So he lived during a time of enlightenment when Jews were allowed out of the ghetto. Jews were allowed to suddenly join certain professions, which generations they weren't allowed to. And there were a lot of assimilation during his time. And he said, listen, Geula, the Mashiach, can happen for 2 reasons. Either because we are deserving of it, because people are doing tshuva. That can be one reason, but there's a whole nother source. There's a whole nother source in the Gemara that the Gemara says, and I'll quote over here, HaChutzpah tigaver. It's going to be a tremendous amount of chutzpah. Na'arim yalbinu pnei zekenim. Young people are going to embarrass older people. Banim uvanot yimredu barehem. Children are going to rebel against the parents. Lo tiyem mitata emet. People are going to be truthful. And so the Gemara paints a whole nother story about what's going to bring Mashiach. Is when things are really alapanim, things are really going badly. Well, how do you go ahead and how do you reconcile the 2 sources? On the one hand, that we know, we read in the Torah, if we do tshuva, there'll be geula, and then this Gemara that says when things are really bad. So comes the Chavetz Chaim, and he says that both very much are correct. Is that there's going to be a polarization in society. On the one hand, there's going to be a section of society, which are really tzaddikim, really involved in Torah learning and mitzvot, and they are going to hasten the coming of Mashiach. On the other hand, there'll be a segment of the population that is so foregone that if Mashiach doesn't come, they're just going to be lost. We discussed how in Mitzrayim, say something similar happened, that the Jews sank down to the 49th level of impurity of Tumah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, if we don't save them now, they're going to be gone. So the Chavetz Chaim envisions both things being true, that you have a segment of the population very devoted, and a segment of the population which is very undevoted. And that's really very interesting in light of the Jewish situation today, because we seem to be nearing this point. We have a lot of the population very dedicated to Jewish traditions, but unfortunately, a lot of the population which is very quickly assimilating. Okay, that is your review video, and I look forward to everybody getting